Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friends for Unity Live. How's it going, Stacia?
Hey, going well. How are you?
All right. I'm doing absolutely wonderful. So before we get today's show going, there is a fun little video that I have for all of you. Today is the 1-year anniversary of the nomination of Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen for president and vice president. And so we have a little 2-minute video from the vice presidential candidate, Spike Cohen, here to show you all, and then we'll get going with the show.
We're going to spread the message of liberty far and wide, and I appreciate this, and I will have plenty of other speeches. So this is a rare moment of me not having much to say, so I will yield the rest of my time to my running mate.
1 year ago today, the Libertarian Party nominated me to run for vice president. It was one of the greatest honors of my life to travel across America to meet everyday people where they were, in person and online, and listen to them. I spoke with people whose lives had been upended by a government who mistreated them, told them they weren't essential, made their lives too expensive to afford for themselves, and sometimes even abused them and put them in cages. I spoke with people who overcame incredible odds, reached for the stars against everything that was thrown at them, and thrived. I listened to their experiences and shared with them how liberty can make their lives freer, happier, and better than ever before. America needs solutions, and since the election, my team and I have continued to travel the country, helping people, pushing for change, and offering them our solutions. In the last year, we've been to 40 states at over 100 events, reached countless people, and spread the message of liberty far and wide.
All right, let's do some revolution shit.
And we're just getting started.
Yo, I've watched that video like 8 times now today. Super stoked. So guys, go to spikecohen.com/first, sign up for the email blast. Something big is coming. But something big is here already. One of my absolute favorite activists and libertarians of all time, Mr. Dan, Taxationist Theft Behrman. How are you tonight?
Thanks, man. What did I do to earn that time?
You're one of the people out here actually doing shit like we were talking about before we went live. An unfortunate,
good,
an unfortunately small club at the moment. So,
yeah, no, it's good to be here, man. Yeah, it's late, man. I warned you. I'm gonna be fucking tired.
Don't worry. It's late. This show is always a little bit less structured than I think your average libertarian podcast, but it usually ends up with better conversations, especially because Stacia usually keeps me on track and doesn't let me get too into the weeds on policy. So helpful.
Into the weeds.
Oh, we're definitely going to get into the weeds for sure, which is actually my first question for you. I've been talking a lot about Nug of Knowledge on my show and on this, and I think you're going to be able to do a better job explaining what that is and how you got to be a weed salesman online.
I actually got a little something right here. This
Nice.
is the Delta 8. Yeah, so I mean, I used to be a drug dealer when I was younger. I worked at a TGI Fridays. My biggest customers were everybody else who worked there. I had the best stuff in LA, man. Yeah, I'm pretty sure my friend was in the Mafia or something. I don't know. The story gets pretty wild. But so I used to sell weed. So now that it's kind of becoming legal, I was like, well, I can sell some weed. Because, you know, it's a lot easier to raise money selling weed than it is to raise money asking for donations for, you know, running for office and this and that. Libertarians don't like to donate a whole lot. I mean,
no, but we do like to buy weed.
Yeah. Exactly. I think if we had some stats on that, like, you know, how much libertarians spend on weed versus how much libertarians spend on Libertarian Party stuff, I'm guessing we spend a lot more on weed.
Yeah.
I have to say.
Like 100 times.
I'm seeing you're very strategic.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so I mean, that's what I'm out here trying to do, is like figure out the best way to get things done and actually make things happen. Because yeah, I don't know. You know, if you just like put in all this work and nothing gets done, what's the point?
Yeah.
True that. I was having a kind of disheartening conversation with someone earlier today where I was trying to convince them of exactly that, of like, they were kind of giving me a sunken cost fallacy argument and like, oh, it's been months and I've done so much. And it's like, yeah, but where are the results?
Right.
Maybe just walk away, spend time elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, that's like the whole, maybe that's the fallacy you mentioned. Like, you know, like, was it Murray Rothbard when he went to China and he was like asking him like, oh, you have you're building new roads. And then he went to go see the construction and they were out there like with shovels. And he's like, why don't they have like machines and tractors and like all this other shit? And his tour guide was telling, oh, it's a jobs program. And he's like, well, I mean, if it's a jobs program, why don't you just give them spoons? Because, like, you know, more jobs, longer time. And it's like, yeah, you can put in all the work, but exactly like what you said, what do you get out of it? That's like that's the thing that actually kind of blows my mind too, because we talk about, I mean, like, you know, it's the big American concern, right? Like, whether you're on the left or the right, the left is saying they're not getting paid enough. The right is saying there aren't enough jobs. And it's like, both of them are like sitting there concerned about what am I going to do all day with my labor so that I can have enough money to eat? And it's like, you know, if you just took that labor and just like went to go get your own food directly, like you'd be eating pretty well. It's like we have this like mentality of no. It's like don't feed the bears, right? Like, you don't want to feed the bears because then they forget how to eat. And so like now our entire society has forgotten how to eat, and we're dependent on not the park ranger feeding the bears, but we're dependent on the economy and the grocery stores feeding us. And it's like, you take away our jobs and it's like, oh my God. And it's like, well, the food's still there. The land's still there. The farms are still there. Go fucking get to work. And, you know?
Yeah, I always found it interesting that we have those signs up like all over the place in every public park or beach or anything. It's like, don't feed the wild animals. And you learn exactly that explanation that you said. It's like, because then they'll forget how to feed themselves. They'll come to expect it. And somehow no one can make the logical conclusion that like we are the wild animals and the government is us. Period. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. It's but of course, I mean, you know, to that point, if we are the wild animals, like the bears aren't out there saying, oh, don't feed me, I'm gonna forget how to eat. The bears are out there like, oh, you got food, I'll take it. Right. Yeah, so it's
true.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's the giver that has to have the self-control, but then it's and then there's
the government never has that. That's
right. And then there's all this emotional bullshit that comes into it about, oh, you don't care about the homeless and the poor and everything else. And it's like, yeah, and yeah, most libertarians don't because they're assholes. But that's I was going to throw that out there.
Real talk.
It's like so. This
Cheers.
is like it was funny. Yeah, cheers. First time. First. This is a first for your show. Because I don't do my shows on weed. I've done them on alcohol, so I guess it's really nothing special. But whatever. Take it. Yeah.
I feel honored.
The first time you should. The first time I learned about the Libertarian Party and like had anything to do with them, I was going to Toastmasters, and it just happened to be a Toastmasters that was put together by the Libertarian Party of Bexar County in San Antonio. And like the first meeting I went to, I had no idea like there was even a Libertarian Party still. And but it was really awesome. And then for whoever doesn't know anything about Toastmasters, it's basically like, you go and you practice making speeches and you learn to be a public speaker. And so they give you like different subjects, and you have to like just come up with something on the spot. And one of them I remember was, how do you talk about ending welfare programs without sounding like you hate the poor? And that one kind of stuck with me, because I'm like, okay, that is a really interesting question, right? Like, because most libertarians are like, oh, just tell me to get a job like everybody else. Mm-hmm. Right. And like, of course, that goes back to the whole thing about like, why are we dependent on jobs in the first place? Jobs are like, you're still taking that. And actually that's really interesting, because like I was thinking about the Amish too, right? Because the Amish are like, yeah, we don't like not necessarily electricity, but machinery and stuff like that. And like I mean, now I want to dig into it to find out, but I feel like that whole thing is like, they understand that if they made their jobs like super easy, that like everything was done for them, they'd get so lazy that like, idle hands are the devil's workshop, and like shit would all go to hell, and people would be doing all kinds of stupid stuff. And so like, so they basically keep themselves employed by not using heavy machinery.
If you don't believe that idle hands make the devil's work, like, you didn't participate online last year. Like some of the TikTok challenges and shit that happened, it's like that was the devil's work, and there is no other way to explain it.
Yeah, there's some ridiculous shit. Yeah, no, absolutely, man.
So that was how you found out about the Libertarian Party, was in the Toastmasters. Yeah.
I was actually searching for, I was trying to like join the Tea Party at the time.
Oh.
Because this was like 2014, 2013, when like I still thought they were about like tax protesting.
Oh.
So actually, I think they were at that time. They didn't really get
the Tea Party.
Yeah, like I think that was just when they were starting to be accused of being like racist, because there was like one or two people, and then it became like totally taken over by Republicans a couple of years after that.
So you already thought taxation was theft before you became a libertarian?
Oh yeah, because so I grew up in LA, and I got robbed by the California FTB, which is the Franchise Tax Board, which is like, And in my years since, I've met several tax attorneys who fight these organizations in court, and they're like, yeah, the California Franchise Tax Board is like 1,000,000 times worse than the IRS.
What?
Like they make the IRS look like Boy Scouts.
Wow.
And from my experience, I have to agree. They are fucking ruthless.
Wow.
Yeah,
you owned a franchise or something?
No. That's don't you live? Oh well, you're a libertarian. You're probably not paying taxes. No, the Franchise Tax Board is like, that's who collects the income tax for California state income tax.
Oh, okay. I have a tax guy. I just send my stuff and he
Yeah.
figures it out.
So basically, like when he does your taxes, he sends one to the IRS and he sends one to the FTB.
Oh,
And
okay.
and then
I see.
and then California goes and spends it on crack and whatever else.
At what point did you decide like you weren't going to pay taxes? That was because you weren't paying taxes?
Well, yeah. So I think like I want to say since I was like 10, I was like, I don't want to pay taxes.
What?
Yeah, because I was always like, I mean, like
I love that.
When I was okay, because like, so here's the thing, right? So I grew up. My dad was an engineer. He lost his job in like the late 80s, early 90s, I guess. But he was always a photographer, so he got more into photography, and he kind of became an entrepreneur. And so he had a friend who like was an entrepreneur also like in photography. And so they started getting into like, this is like when the internet was just being invented by what's his name, the fucking Inconvenient Truth guy. He had a corner office right across from Jeff Bezos at Amazon where it was like spray painted, you know, that picture going around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kidding, that's all bullshit.
Oh, okay.
But they were like, so like the internet was just getting popular, and like HTML 1.0 was around, Netscape Navigator, Internet Explorer. I had to try really hard to say those right, because we used to call them Nutscrape and Immigrant Exploiter. That was like our, because yeah, they were shit browsers, but everything was back then. I mean, it was either that or AOL, right? And
right.
So like one business idea they had was like, yeah, we can make websites for people, and like they had no idea how to do it. And I'm kind of like one of these kid geniuses that's like playing around with a computer, and like, you know, like back then everybody's like, oh yeah, just hire a teenager to do it. They figure those things out. And it's like, okay, so they asked me to like build some websites for them. And like, I had no idea what I was doing. And like, I mean, all websites looked like shit back in the 90s. So, you know, I guess it passed. And then like, I remember having a conversation because my dad was like, so this website came, and like my dad, like, you know, he's going out like selling these websites and I'm doing all the work. And like, I was probably, I guess I was being like a total socialist, because I'm like, wait, how much are you paying me? And he's like, I'm paying you. I think he was giving me like $10 an hour, $15 an hour or something, right? And then and I'm like, but how much are you charging? And like it was like 60 or 80 or something. And I'm like, what? And I was like so pissed off. Because I'm like, but I'm doing all the work. And like I had no concept of like, yeah, but if he didn't like go get the client, like I'd be getting zero, right? So and then he's like, and then he started explaining, well, I have overhead because you know, he's like, I'm paying for the internet, and which I don't know if that was true, because he was still on dial-up, and I got the cable modem because like I wanted to download all kinds of crazy shit, and like, anyways, that's another story. But he was paying the electricity and all this shit, right? So anyway, so I was just like, why is everyone trying to steal my piece of the pie, right? And then he started telling me, and you're gonna have to pay taxes on that, and I was like, what? So I'm already, because like in my head, he's like, I don't remember what these numbers were. I'm just making them up. But like in my head, like it was like, okay, so these people are paying 60 and I'm getting 15. So I'm already getting only 25% of the pie. Now, if I got to pay taxes on that, I'm going to end up with like 10%. And I'm the one doing all the work. What are you doing? Like, I'm telling my dad, what are you doing? And then I'm telling the IRS or whoever, like, what the fuck did you guys do to earn a piece of my pie? And then of course, like I went and I ratted out my dad to my mom. And
nice.
Yeah, that was pretty much the end of the business though.
Oh.
I was on my own after that. I had to go find my own clients.
So was that how you learned that it was worth paying him the 75%?
Well, okay, yes. Well, no, I learned that the hard way, like further down the line. But like because like, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a stupid Californian, right? And at the time, and so
Hey,
no offense. I mean, I was young, and like, you know, I was like, I don't know, 12 or something, and so, but like I like later on, it's like, okay, yeah, I figured out the value to that, and then like years later, like I learned about consent, and it's like, oh, I consent to give you a piece of my pie because that's going to mean there's a bigger pie. And like I actually learned that like when when I joined the circus. That's another story. I was living in LA, and one of my friends called me up, and he's like, yeah, man, because I was doing like freelance video stuff, and he's like, yeah, I got this job. If you want it, it's 2 months long. They pay you a few $100 a week, and basically you have to fly to Nashville and get on a bus. And I'm like, okay, sounds cool. Sign me up. So I went and did it, and it turned out it wasn't really a circus. Instead of like monkeys and elephants, we had like the cast from the Real World and Road Rules. So it was still kind of a circus. Yeah, we were doing like
tigers and lions.
No. It was no tigers
actual
and lions.
Cats.
No. Real
Like
world
small...
human beings, people. Real World, the MTV show.
I haven't seen that.
Oh my God! How old? Oh my God! Did I just date myself? Am I like the old guy on the show now? Like it was always on MTV right after Leave It to Beaver.
No.
You don't remember that?
She didn't grow up in the same country as we did for a good chunk of time.
Oh,
so,
okay. Okay.
So yeah, to preface, I know what you're talking about, and I'm only 24, so don't worry. The trailer's up on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's only a couple minutes. But for the record, you asked what you did to deserve the title of one of my favorite libertarians ever. It's the fact that I can have you on a show and we'll be like talking about the basic like philosophical reasons of why taxation is theft, and then just side off into a story about you joining the fucking circus. Like, what other guest could I have?
See, and this is funny too, because like libertarians are always like, oh yeah, you're such a fucking clown with the big hat and everything. And I'm like, I was in Iowa last year, and I was telling this story about how I joined the circus, and there was this woman who was there, first time ever being at a libertarian convention, right? And she was bored out of her mind, and she heard me say something about joining the circus. So she's like, oh, excuse me, what are you talking about? And she came over and joined, and she's a Republican, by the way, right? She's not even libertarian. And like, so then like I'm telling this whole story, and like I tied it into something else that I was talking about was, you know, before that. And like the next thing you know, this woman's just like, oh, that's it. I'm joining the Libertarian Party. This is fucking awesome. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like people like to fucking have fun. They don't want to come and argue about rules and whose caucus is bigger.
Yeah.
I did want to ask if we can derail to that for just a quick second. I heard a rumor that you are officially a member of the Mises Caucus, though? Is that like a real thing?
What's official?
Well, I don't know.
Did I pay a membership? I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, that's not like an accusatory thing. I'm just curious because they've been getting a lot of like the better libertarians to be like, yeah, like that's my team. I know that they like I'm pretty sure Adam Kokesh just like did a whole like little sponsored thing with them, and I've just been hearing. I heard your name thrown around as well. I wasn't sure if you were part of that.
I don't know. Who'd you hear that from? Because I don't think I signed. I don't think I signed anything. I've been trying to get in touch with Michael Heiss, and apparently he's too busy to return my calls. I mean, apparently he's too busy to return anybody's calls, so I'm not going to make myself feel special. But
he has been keeping himself busy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the caucus. I mean, the plural, the Royal Caucus.
Cockeye.
Cockeye, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, like, I was a member of a couple of them, and you know, they were kind of like, So the Audacious Caucus, which was like, I don't know if it was actually part of the Radical Caucus or not, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. There's like some cool people in those groups, but like at the end of the day, I'm not LARPing. I want to get some shit done. So, you know, what's like the caucus is like you join a caucus if you want to do some political activism within the party, and it's like, fuck that. We shouldn't be doing anything within the party like that. Everybody here is already voting Libertarian. Okay. How libertarian you want to be, whether you're 79% or 83%, I don't give a fuck. It's like, let's go get the people who are like 3% and get those 3%, the 3% libertarian up to like 50 or 60. And then, you know, once we have more people kind of like in that range, then we can argue over like the 5% difference on that. But like, otherwise it's like, oh, this is speaking of TikTok challenges. This was a great one. Like I've seen it like a million times now. Like different people. Like, so this guy, he's like, oh, look at this. He's showing with his phone. He's showing like this little, like somebody keyed his car, right? And all you see is this really like, look at this fucking scratch. And he's just like rubbing it. And he's like, oh man, who the fuck did this to my car? And then he like backs out. And it's like a car sitting in the junkyard and it's totally fucking scrap metal, like just garbage, like totally like crushed. And it's like, this is exactly like what's going on in the Libertarian Party when people are talking about like, oh, let's argue about these little things. And it's like, guys, like 98% of the fucking country is statists. Let's go get some of those. Let's fix the bigger problems. Then we can worry about the little details and the little scratches.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
I find it interesting. Normally people like will give a similar speech, but they don't say the 3% libertarians. They say like they find people who are like 80%, make them 90%. I like that you were like, no, let's go find some fucking statists and wake them the fuck up. Like that's something that not a lot of people are even trying to do.
This is how we win an election. 50% of the Democrats, 50% of the Republicans. That's more than enough.
It's actually pretty easy is what I've been finding, because I'm new to hanging out with libertarians. And so before, all my friends were not libertarian. And so as I've been starting to hang out with them again, I've been finding most of them like the non-aggression principle, and are pretty against the wars and are like agree with most of the stuff, you know. Therefore, like small local government to be empowered and, you know, less federal government. And like, I don't know, it just seems like most people. And then also, like with Second Look, what I'm trying to do is, it seems like the left has their position that they stake out and the right has their position that they stake out, like in terms of parties, right? And then neither one is the actual important thing, right? Like both of them, it's like controlled opposition or something. They're fighting over things that are so stupid when the actual problem is like over there in the corner, and the actual solution is, you know, like they're not even talking about the real problem or the real solution.
Right.
And so like I had a conversation with a friend. I've been having a lot of these conversations with friends who are my friends are mostly Democrats. But when it was about climate change, and he's kind of like passionate about it. But I brought up some things and he was like, you didn't take either of the positions. He was like, what just happened?
That's against the rules.
Yeah. Like, his face was just so confused. And so I feel like a lot of people are more open to it than it seems, I think, especially if you talk to them one-on-one. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if there's a sense among libertarians that it's hard to talk to people who are statists, or if there's a sense that they don't want to, or like, I don't know. I've been kind of trying to
I think there's definitely like a lot of introverts. A lot of people will say statistically like 90% or like some ridiculously high percent of libertarians are on the spectrum. And like, okay. And it's like, yeah, so I don't know. I think there's, and like going to the conventions, I think like you see a lot of that.
See a lot of what? People on the
Yeah,
spectrum?
I mean, and you know,
Yeah.
no offense. No, yeah, I mean, well, yeah, that and like just like crazy fucking shit. I mean, and I'm one of those people. I'm not normal by any means. And proud of it. But yeah, like
I'll also sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
I was hoping you would cut me off.
Okay, no worries. I'll gladly do that. I think another thing that people tend to not the newer people to the party, like myself and newer especially, the Libertarian Party is pretty small, right? And a lot of these people have been here for quite some time, and so a lot of them went hard in the paint for like Ron Paul 88 or like Harry Brown 96, right? And they have been getting called like kid murderers, like sodomists, like fucking like all of these crazy fucking things that libertarians been getting called for 50 fucking years of like Nazis and you hate poor people, you hate black people, you hate everything because you're a libertarian. Eventually a lot of these people are burnt the fuck out. Like they don't want to go talk to statists because they're sick of statists telling them that they're like Assad apologists because they don't want to be in Syria right now. Like, eventually 20 years of that just burns some people out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's up to us to like reinvigorate.
Yeah, I kind of got over it. I guess I'm used to it at this point.
Yeah. I wonder if libertarians...
But I think, well, at the same time, like... Sorry. You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Now I wonder what libertarians would do.
Well, I wonder if there are a lot of kind of extremists in the party, like if they would be willing to be milder and just stick with like the non-aggression principle and the wars. Like I feel like there are things that have a very broad, because like a lot of us in Unity were gonna vote Jorgensen. I mean, I did vote Jorgensen, but when she came on the campfire and talked with Brett, we were like, oh my god, we do not want libertarians in power, because she was like so like anarchist or something. She just was against so many things that we all thought are important for like the stability of our lives. And so I think if it could be milder in order to accomplish the things that we all agree on, then
there's like always been that fight. There's always been like, people are like, oh yeah, just tone it down a little bit, and then everybody else is like, no, we're not going to water down the message. Like this is it. It's 100%. It's all or nothing. And like, I think like none of that really matters at the end of the day. The big thing that everyone's missing is that, and libertarians hate admitting this, especially because they're always accused of it for the wrong reason. Libertarians are just as selfish as everybody else. I mean, like Democrats don't vote Democrat because they like the color blue. They vote Democrat because they think they're going to benefit from whatever they believe the Democrat policy is. So like, oh, I'm going to vote blue because that's going to help the poor people. I'm going to vote blue because it's going to help minorities. And then you have the other people who are, I guess, Republicans are generally higher income, right? Or at least they talk like they are. I don't know. But or like they're the side that don't care about the poor because they're always saying, well, why don't you get a better job like everybody else? So I feel like they're working harder, earning more, that kind of thing. The property, the wealthy property owners and that kind of shit.
Republicans make up most of the middle class, and like especially the upper middle class,
Yeah.
where Democrats
So-
are the lower and upper class.
So these are the people who vote for Republicans because they're like, oh, we're going to build a wall, which is going to be good for me because it's going to protect my job. Right. So like all of this is selfish. Like it's not because of red or blue or like all this other shit. Now, of course, that comes into it at the end, right? Because at the end of the day, they totally get behind Trump and they're like, oh yeah, I love this guy and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is they love that guy because he shares the same values. Like if Trump had like openly been saying like, oh yeah, we're going to open the border and like fuck your jobs, then those Republicans would have been like, yeah, get this guy the fuck out of here. So now when you look at libertarians, it's like libertarians are just as selfish because at the end of the day, what do you want? You want to get rid of the ATF, not because you want your next door neighbor who doesn't care about guns to be able to own whatever machine guns he wants. You want to get rid of the ATF because you want to own whatever machine guns you want. Right? You want to get rid of the FDA because you want to be able to buy drugs from overseas, and like you're perfectly okay with that because you think the quality is going to be fine. You're not going to have an issue with it, right? You want to get rid of the IRS because you don't want to pay taxes, and that's mine, right? That's what drove me to the Libertarian Party originally was like taxes and like the government stealing all this money. That's my selfish reason. But at the same time, I don't know if this is like the whole altruistic. I've told this is like some Ayn Rand shit, but like I've never really gotten into her. But so basically that like if I were to say, okay, look, I want freedom for myself because that's the way I want to live my life, but I know I can't get it unless everybody else gets it. Therefore, I want to help everybody else get it. Then there's still a selfish undertone of, okay, but you're all doing this at the end of the day for yourself, even though you're helping all these other people. And then it's like, okay, but does it really matter? Because and it's like, do you not care about the other people? No, that's not true. Like, it's not like you just don't care about the other people, but you always have, like, this is how our DNA is wired, right? Is self-preservation and like of ourselves and our DNA, right? Like we have to protect ourselves, our lives, our families, have kids, grow, transfer all the knowledge, and let them replace us. And like that's in our DNA. And so but we have to understand, like, okay, so totally went on a tangent, but back to your point about like all the libertarians who are like, oh, you need to water down because I don't like this, I don't like that. The reality is they became libertarian because the libertarian, like, they might have liked one or two positions, right? Like, oh yeah, I just like, I don't care about legalizing weed or gay marriage or anything else. I just want a better economy, right? I don't want the government to be in debt, so my taxes will be lower. And they have their single issue, and so they kind of reject some of the other issues, but some people are willing to put up with it, some people are not. And then when all of these people who are basically I want to say they have some conservative values, like some issues they really don't care about. Like they think it's embarrassing to push like legalized recreational cocaine. Like they're embarrassed by that, and like they'll never do cocaine because people who do cocaine are totally cool with pushing that. But it's like they don't want to get behind that, and so what happens is they want to like, okay, who's going to carry the banner for this? Let's pick somebody who doesn't touch any of the sensitive issues too hard, and then you get something that's totally fucking watered down, and that inspires absolutely nobody. So the reality is, this is what we were talking about before the show, is when you want to reach all these people, you have to stop thinking that like, oh, freedom is, everybody wants freedom, and we're just, if we run around saying, hey, freedom over here, it's free, come get it, that people are eventually going to come around and get it. That's not going to happen. You have to figure out what their issues are, and this is exactly what the Democrats and Republicans have done. And they do polls on this every single fucking year. Oh, what are you concerned about? What are you concerned about? Right? And they know what these people are concerned about, and then they come up with some bullshit solution that's going to make the government bigger, and then they sell it to them based on all of the fears and concerns that they have.
Yeah.
The
And so
other thing I'll add, sorry, just to is that we have had this is the 50th year, right, of the LP. So as far as presidential candidates, we've had fucking all over the place on the spectrum of of like watered down and radical and like basically a Republican. We've ran neocons for vice president. We've ran neocons for president. We ran fucking comedians for governor that ditched us halfway through the race and just tanked our entire party. We've ran all sorts of things. I mean, realistically, Joe was probably one of the better people as far as landing a middle ground between radical and like pragmatic. In her policy, she just wasn't the best at delivering it. Like Spike Cohen had the exact same platform as she did, pretty much. He was just able to actually like convey it to people, and that's why he had like Boogaloo Boy endorsements and BLM chapter endorsements, and also like local newspapers and like fucking and colleges and all sorts of things, because that campaign was actually one of the better ones, which is kind of sad to say, but like if you want to look at milquetoast and watered down, look at Gary Johnson, who's like, oh, we don't want recreational cocaine, just marijuana, like that's all we're talking about
bastard
here.
wanted driver's licenses too. That's terrible.
Right.
But yeah, and like, you know, you can see that too, because like everyone was worried that, oh, we don't have Gary Johnson, you know, we don't have like a big name, right? And like the number of votes was still more or less the same. And so like really what that goes to show is like it's not about what candidate you pick, because nobody sees the candidates anyways, right? Like we don't get like 100 hours a week on CNN like Trump does, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, so the reality is like you need a completely different strategy, and that strategy is not to just run around and talk to big groups and like just try to like, you know, try to cast the big net. You got to go out there spearfishing, which is like, you know, that's what you were talking about earlier about the, you know, having your one-on-one conversations and those like really getting through to people, because you're not talking like if you talk to 1,000 people, every single one of them has a different concern in their head, and you can't just like cast this generic, you know, thing over them unless you have media control, right? Because if you have media control, then it's like you can just say a message over and over and over, and like, you know, because it's on air like a million times, everyone's going to hear it, and eventually it's going to get stuck in their head like one of those really annoying pop songs, right? Like you hear it 10 times on the radio and you can't get it out of your head. That's what they're doing. And it's like, if you don't have access to that, then you can't cast that net. You got to go out spearfishing, and you got to talk to people one-on-one and like figure out what their problems are. Or what I'm working on now is to figure out kind of like a little bit more broad than that, to find out what those issues are and how to address those people, how to have that conversation and address that issue with a libertarian pull to it. And so now we're creating an entire organization that's going to go out. I mean, it's still kind of spearfishing, but it's like finding those people who care about that issue specifically, and just them, and that's it. And like not trying to get like you know, just everybody out there and like, you know, cover 100 different like, you know, the full libertarian platform, just like one issue. Because ultimately that's like, I mean, look at BLM, right? BLM raised $90 million last year. You've got Fight for 15, where it's like a Democrat organization, but they get like millions of people supporting that. I mean, when's the last time you heard someone say the minimum wage should be $14 or $16? Never. Everyone says 15. It came from that Fight for 15 organization, which has controlled this entire narrative. And all they did was they had some rallies, and they like recruited people, and they got volunteers, and they did like a grassroots, and they put some money, and like that's all they talked about was $15 minimum wage. That's it. Like, and that got people hooked. And so like, why aren't we doing that with libertarian messages? Instead, it's like, well, sit down, let me teach you economics from scratch again. It's like, fuck no, that's boring.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing, I have a good friend, Paul Grindle. He's working with me, or was working with me on the Stacey Pressman campaign, and Larry Sharps as well. And he likes to talk about the DSA, because he was an environmentalist in New York during kind of like the rise of DSA. And he likes to talk about going to rallies in like 2012, 2013, Like every single Fight for 15, BLM, environmental rally, like literally any time that anybody was joining together for a leftist cause of any kind, they had their little fucking table, and they were getting harassed. They were getting kicked out of events. They were getting their tables flipped over. They were being cursed out for being socialists. They were like, people were going off on them for years and years and years. But they went and they did grassroots work for 5 years, and then ran Bernie Sanders and almost won the presidency. Like,
Yeah,
it takes a lot of work.
yeah,
We need to be
absolutely.
willing to get our tables flipped over and get cursed out for like 5 years straight of just constant every time. Like, I just went to a marijuana rally. Like, it's a yearly like rally in New York City for marijuana. This is the first year it was fucking legal. Like, we didn't have to worry about getting arrested at this event for the first time in history. And there was 8 of us there from the LP, I think.
Yeah.
One candidate of the 7 that are running in the city. 8.
And look at how, and like, I mean, because I spent a lot of time with weed activists, right? With Normal and there's a lot of orgs, just like around Dallas and Austin. There's a lot of organizations, and like I talk to most of those people, and it's like they're mostly libertarian. They're like, yeah, the government shouldn't be in our shit at all, but that, like, if you tell them, hey, we're organizing a rally, it's the Libertarian Party, they don't go show up. You tell them, hey, we're holding a rally to legalize weed, they're like, oh, I'm fucking there, man. I'll bring a joint. Like, and it's like, because that's the issue that they care about. Like, that's the one that they really, really, really care about. And that's the fight that, libertarians are having. It's the infighting, but we just got to like break away. And I think this was interesting because I heard Dave Smith saying this on like his, he was talking about how Ron Paul was like, the savior, and like he wants to rebuild Ron Paul's message or something, it sounds like. But the truth is, like, yeah, it was kind of like his, I don't know. It was some speech I was watching today. I probably totally.
Were you watching his speech from last Friday at the?
I think so. He had the Mises Caucus banner behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good speech.
Yeah, I know. He said a lot of good things in there, but like, but what I don't like about the whole Ron Paul thing, and like, I mean, I love Ron Paul, but like, people are like, yeah, we need the next Ron Paul, and it's like, Ron Paul was a single issue guy. It was all in the Fed, and he didn't get popular until the year when like that became an issue of the majority of the public. Like, because like Wall Street was getting the bailout and all this other shit, and that's all tied to the Fed. This is where Ron Paul comes in, and so like they think like, oh, we finally figured out how to do the campaign right, and it's like, no, it's like that was just relevant. That was his time. Yeah, that was he came right into. He's been saying the same message since like the 70s. He's still doing the same thing now. Like, most people don't even know I don't even see his podcast. Like, and I know where he is, and I probably subscribe to it, and I don't even see the shit. And it's like, what is he up to? I don't know. And it's like, he's there. He still hasn't shut up. He's not in Congress anymore, but he's still doing his thing. And like, and like nothing, crickets. Not because like it's not true anymore, or like people just don't care anymore. It's because it's not relevant anymore. So now what's the relevant issue, and like, how do we libertarianize that? And then take, because I mean, all these people, this is the cool thing, like all these people they've been weaponized by the Democrats. Like, the Democrat Party has weaponized all these people against everybody else. And it's actually a good thing, right? Because we don't have to fight them and take them down. All we have to do is now take all these people who are like really enraged that the system is fucked up and redirect their attention to the real problem. Yes. And they will fight hard as fuck with us.
Yes. I agree so much. Yes.
So I will agree with you that is actually a really accurate summary of Dave Smith's 40-minute speech last week. That was, you got it pretty well. But I will say, to his credit, it doesn't, he doesn't sound like, and because I've actually gotten to talk to him a little bit about this, and like he's not like copy pasting Ron Paul's platform to a new platform, right? He understands that the times have changed, so but if you look at the timeline, him running it now compared to Ron Paul in like 2012 is actually pretty comparable, because we're coming out of a very similar holy fuck, what the fuck did our government just do to us? And it's like lockdowns, corporate bailouts, we just gave trillions of dollars away. Well, y'all couldn't even get your fucking $1,000 checks. Like, you just got fucked up the ass by the federal government for the last year and a half. That's a pretty strong message again. And Dave is so much more charismatic than Ron Paul too.
Yeah.
Like he's got that going for him. Like Ron Paul was great, but he was just a little bit dry, and Dave is not. I'm not like supporting his non-existent presidential run yet, but like I am excited about how he's kind of taking this. And I also am excited about how other people are taking their like national outreach strategies right now, because he's like, I think he's identified a good spearfishing zone, right? To your earlier point, that, he can target the people that are really pissed off about the lockdowns and the corporate bailouts and the wars. Those are his issues. Those are what he goes ham on. And he's got backup on all those issues, like Scott Horton and other people like that can really just go hard on this stuff. And then we've got other people like yourself. We've got Spike. We've got Justin. We've got Joe back on the scene. We've got people like Nick Sarwark also doing like national outreach strategies, targeting their issues. I think we're gonna do a lot of good stuff over the next year if we could just drop the infighting bullshit for like 5 fucking seconds.
Absolutely. So Brian's, I'm reading the comments. Brian's asking, what's the golden ticket for libertarians? I think that's the thing. Haven't you been paying attention, man? There is no golden ticket. It's like there is not one Care Bear. There's 10 of them, and they're all different colors, right? Or Power Rangers, or Ninja Turtles. No, seriously, like any show you watch, like go look at Friends. Friends is a typical example that like they'll use. Like if you talk to like a psychologist or somebody who knows advertising really well, like, and ask them about Friends and like why people love that show and why it lasted so long. It's because of the variety of the characters in like between the 6 of them, that like their personalities were so different that anybody who watched the show, they were like different, but specific enough that anybody who watched the show could identify with one of them. And so this basically, because what is it? It's like Seinfeld, right? It's a show about nothing. It's just a bunch of people living in an apartment. And like the shit that goes on every day. And it's like when people can relate to that, then they feel like they're sitting in the room with these people, and like psychologically you'll let that show play like in reruns over and over and over, and it's like, oh yeah, no, those are my cousins in the other room. Like that's how it gets into your head. And like but that's the thing, you can't make a show with one character, right? So the reality is like you have to make all the different flavors that everybody likes. And so I'm gonna say what some of those are. The minimum wage. Like take the fucking minimum wage, get everybody who's pissed off that companies aren't paying enough, turn it around into a libertarian positive. And like, well, okay, how do you do that? Well, why are people taking $7 an hour for a job? Would you do that? I wouldn't do that. Why would they do that? Maybe they have a self-esteem issue or something. I don't know. Why don't we start telling them, hey, if somebody offers you $7 an hour, just say no, fuck that. Why are you selling yourself out for so little? Right? Start encouraging people to be better and want more. And then when you do that, the reality is like, if you start saying no to jobs, if you start roughing it, like, let's say, like, forget about the bullshit about like, oh, you're not cool because you still live with your parents, blah, 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 blah. Save your money, live with your parents. Like, fucking don't waste your money on rent. And then you can say no to those jobs. And like, yeah, I know it's going to take some convincing with your parents, right? Why don't you get a job? But the thing is, like, when people say no to jobs, look at what's happening now. Like like I saw McDonald's that was offering $20 an hour. These places are saying, instead of paying you every 2 weeks and like the first check is like 3 or 4 weeks out, like they're paying you the same day at fast fucking food because because like nobody wants to work. And it's like, so let's keep that going. Let's continue to not want to work these bullshit jobs for bullshit. And like the reason we do that is we force ourselves to live beyond our means, right? Like, and I know like this isn't like everybody, because not everybody has these choices, but a lot of us move out of our parents' house as soon as we can, and we burn through a shit ton of money on rent, and like, you know, we spend a ridiculous amount on college for like a degree that won't get us shit, like learning ridiculous stuff that you can really, like, a lot of that stuff you can learn online for free. Like all of this stuff, let's start shifting that mindset into like, no, value yourself. And when people want what you're worth, they'll offer it and you'll get paid fucking bank.
Yeah.
And
so
that's
for
like,
the record, if anybody's watching this and they have a shitty job where they're making like $7 or $10 an hour and they're like, yeah, I don't know what I would do. I'm hiring in Colorado right now. It's like $40 an hour petitioning. So like, if you can make your way to Colorado, make some good money for Liberty instead.
Holy shit. I'm moving out to Colorado. That's awesome, man. But yeah, like, and that's the thing, like those opportunities are always out there, man. Like I was working at the TGI Fridays selling my weed. And one of the girls there had a second job at a temp agency. And like I was the only person who asked, like, oh, like, what kind of jobs do they have? And so like it was kind of funny because this was during the mortgage crisis, or like before the mortgage crisis. So she ended up getting me a temp job that paid like I don't know, $12 or $15 an hour. And like all I was doing was literally going through like tons and tons of mortgages, which were like file papers this big, pulling out staples, making sure everything was in, checking off a list, and then passing it on. And that was it.
Nice.
And then like I found out 2 years later, when the housing crisis, like when the housing bubble popped, like all those fucking mortgages I were processing were all those like fucking ridiculous interest only, like fucking, like, yeah, I know it was part of the problem. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just a paper pusher, man. Don't blame me. I had no moral responsibility in that. But yeah, but it's like, but that's the thing. Like nobody asked, and like, and it sucks. But like, I did this, and I know this was this proof that you hate the poor move. But like when I was running my campaign for Texas House in 2014, I made a post online. That was before Facebook was censoring me, and I said, hey, I want 10 people who are making minimum wage to contact me, and I'm going to find you a job that pays you at least $10 an hour, right? And so a bunch of people reached out, and I responded back to them, and I said, okay, here are 10 phone numbers. Call them and tell them you're looking for a job, right? None of them fucking called anybody. One guy, after I sent him the list, he came back to me and he's like, man, you got to help me out, man. He's like, I think I'm going to get fired. I'm like, why are you going to get fired? He's like, because I got into a fight at work. And I'm like, okay, well, you have those phone numbers. Go call him. He's like, okay, I'm going to go call him. I talked to him 2 days later. I was like, did you call those numbers? And he's like, no, man, I talked to my manager and like I got written up, but I'm not getting fired. And it's like, yeah, but you're still getting minimum wage. Call the fucking numbers. Mm-hmm. And it's like it sucks, but it's like, and I get it. So this is the other side of that, right? Because everybody says everybody has the same opportunities, right? Like you could be the next Bill Gates, but why are you making minimum wage? Well, the reality is like Bill Gates, like he wasn't working a minimum wage job with absolutely no guidance or anybody mentoring him and pushing him in any direction. Like he grew up with that, right? Like I wasn't just like born a fucking computer genius. My dad was an engineer, and he had a computer in the fucking early 80s, and I was playing with that thing like since I was like 5 or something, right? Like I had access to that and other people don't. Like even like telling you you're worth more than minimum wage and don't ever get one of those shitty fucking jobs. Like if nobody tells you that, you're gonna fall into that fucking trap. And it's like they don't teach you that shit in public school. They teach you like, oh, get a job, pay your fucking taxes, hold your hand up to the flag, and that's it. They don't teach you to have fucking self-esteem or like not to get shitty jobs or not to let people treat you like shit and walk all over you, because that's what the fucking school is doing, right? Imagine the school's trying to teach people like don't let people walk all over you. They're gonna fucking rise up against the fucking school administrators. But like all this stuff comes from somewhere. And so like, yeah, like plenty of people like, you know, yeah, maybe you grew up in the hood and like you made it out and like now you're a millionaire, but it's like somebody gave you some guidance that not everybody else is getting. Like somebody gave you some advice along the way, like, and so like that's a big part of it. Let me know if I'm ranting.
No, you are, but in a good way. Because you're hitting the nail right on the head. We need to hit people where they are, because that's something that we've, or at least I'll take blame on that one. Like I fail at that sometimes. You know, I like to talk about my things. I even tell people like I don't know shit about foreign policy. Don't ask me about Israel Palestine. I don't know. Go talk to Scott Horton. I don't fucking know. All I know is white phosphorus bombs are an international war crime. So fuck that. Like once you do that, then it's a little bit easier for me to pick sides. Which is why I love it when people over-escalate things. I got that blessing in a Twitter war yesterday. You know, people over-escalated things and made it very easy for me to pick sides. It's fun. Yeah. But I don't know about that kind of stuff. So, you know, you want to talk to me about drug decriminalization? I am all for it. There's like 87 different things that I can talk to you about. But I think, yeah, I mean,
you know, like, look, like, so like, are you guys hearing all on my side? Oh,
yeah, we can.
Sorry.
There you go.
You're good. My cable's fucked up here. What was I going to say? You were talking about, okay. So this is an interesting like tweet that somebody made, right? That and you might've seen this, cause I think it was a big fight between the Mises Caucus and somebody. I'm not going to mention any names. Oh shit. I already mentioned one side. Oh, fuck it. So like somebody said, if there's 10 people sitting at a table and 9 of them are Nazis, there are 10 Nazis sitting at a table. Right. And I'm like, okay, I can see your guilty by association point, but what's the solution? Is it because if you have 10 people sitting at a table, 9 of them are Nazis, one person gets up and leave, you still have 9 Nazis at the table. You don't have anybody listening in on what they're up to, and you don't have anybody trying to tell them that what they're doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So instead of accusing, because I'm always in that position, right? Because I'm always talking to people like, you know, oh, don't talk to that person, he's a snitch, or he's a CIA plant, like all this shit. And it's like, I'm gonna talk to. I guarantee they're all in the Libertarian Party.
Oh my gosh.
But so like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Because I just got into a Twitter war this day because a bunch of people are mad. I went on a fucking podcast on Saturday.
You bastard!
Right, I did the thing, guys.
From the Federation of Podcasters.
I did have permission from the cathedral, though. They were fine with it. I got permission from all of the caucuses that I'm a part of, but one caucus that I'm not a part of. No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, but they were all
Oh, this
excited
stuff.
about it.
Okay.
As the member of the caucus, he gave himself permission from the caucus on behalf of the caucus.
Oh,
Exactly.
nice.
Guys, the nationalist capitalist, Mr. Reed Coverdale, is here. Reed, hello.
Hey, Reed.
I cannot hear you, good sir.
My phone's about to die.
Hey, hold on.
I'm going to be right back. Otherwise, I'm going to disappear without saying it. I'll be back.
Can you hear me now? Still nothing? Nothing?
We're good.
Yeah.
All right. There was some lag, but I think we caught up.
Okay.
We were just talking about how stupid Twitter wars are, real quick, even though that really hasn't. We've been doing a good job of not talking about that all day. We got an hour in without really mentioning too much of Twitter, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Twitter. What a fucking place.
Mm-hmm.
Boy,
it's like,
I mean, you're.
Yeah. What's up?
I haven't done. I think.
You're cutting
Yeah,
out.
it's like a bad Verizon commercial.
Yeah, you're pretty. He'll switch out. He's got better tech than that. But yeah,
he's on the VPN. He's on the VPN on the VPN on the VPN on tour.
On tour. But yeah, I love the fact that like basically I went on a podcast to defend somebody else's ability to go on a podcast and then got yelled at by their people for going on a podcast. It's fun.
What?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Nope. I heard like a split second. I heard a pop.
Hello.
I heard that. I heard hello.
Yeah. Man, that headset fucking sucks, broski. But yeah, no, Twitter's stupid. What I do love about the Libertarian Party right now, the way that the liberty unity shit's been going, is that when you decide to just like attack somebody for dumb shit, a very large coalition of people come to your defense, and it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a waste of fucking time, honestly.
I agree, which is why I ignored it most of yesterday.
Yeah,
I saw your comments
today. I saw your comments today, and it is such a waste of fucking time.
No.
There you go. Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's still.
How was your evening, good sir?
Now, but it's better.
Arizona as well, New Mexicans, even though they're all figured.
I think it's his connection.
Yeah, maybe it. Yeah, I think it might just be your connection.
I think it's your connection. It's like it's weird because your video is working perfect, but your sound is just like in and out.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Still can't.
Are you too far from the Wi-Fi?
Fine, it's all LTE. Still can't hear.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what
A
that
little
sounds
bit
like.
better.
Fucking LTE.
Yeah.
Turn your they don't let you see. I bet if you could change the bandwidth of your video, it would make the audio work better. But they don't let you do that shit.
I wonder if we can. Yeah, it's not gonna let me do it midstream because.
Well, not the whole bandwidth, but like just his cam. Oh, because he's downloading too. Because he's watching the whole stream.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, fucking technology sucks, man.
Nothing.
That's true. It is true. Oh, well.
He's here in spirit.
He is here in spirit. It's a perennial issue with the good Mr. Coverdale. love him to pieces, but his connection sucks because he's normally out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in a truck doing the Lord's work, delivering large things to large people.
So Mexico's fiber network puts America's to shame. Like, I used to hear about like Japan's fiber network and like, oh my God, everybody's got fiber, and like, like I remember Israel was like, oh, everybody's got like phones that you can watch videos on, like back when we had little Nokias. And like, I'm like, well, it makes more sense, right? Because they're installing like really high bandwidth antennas, but like the size of it is fucking tiny, so they can cover the entire country. Whereas like in the US, like 5G, okay, we're gonna have to roll it out city by city to 1,000 different cities, and then you have like all these like areas in between the cities that you have to cover, or else you're gonna get like shitty reviews about like how you went off on the highway and your phone wasn't downloading at 50 gigs per second anymore, and like so that used to be like what I thought, and then I saw what fucking Mexico did, and like I'm in the middle of the fucking jungle, and I have a little plastic like fiberglass fucking cable coming into my fucking wall. Like not like to down the street and then like from there they run a copper cable. Like I have the fiberglass coming in through my fucking wall, and like they're wired up down here. And like, why the fuck?
That's fucking awesome.
And like, I mean, US, and I'm paying, holy shit, what am I paying? Basically like, I think $30 a month for like 200 megs up and down. The up part is what always fucking freaks me out, because like I'm used to like being on Time Warner and getting like 1 meg up. Like I'll pay for like, give me the biggest package you have. Well, yeah, but it only goes up at 1 meg. I'm like, what the fuck can I do with that? But yeah, it's nuts down here, man.
Yo, so I just opened Twitter up to like retweet it from one of my other accounts, just to because I try to do that so that it's like viewership trickles in, and I just saw the last message into the group chat, and it was, what exactly is an audacious caucus? I'm just gonna leave that one. I hope somebody else takes that.
It's audacious.
Yeah.
Also known as the odd cock.
Odd cock.
It's I mean, yeah, it's just another. I mean, like, I don't know. It was a bunch of us friends. Like, I think we used to have like Zoom meetings, but like I don't think we ever did anything productive. I mean, we kind of did. Like we talked about like candidate campaigns and shit like that, but like it wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't like we had an agenda that we wanted to like push within the party or something. It was really just like, I guess, working to push audacious candidates. I don't know. Does that make it a real caucus? I don't even know. I don't know. But yeah,
well, I mean, they're doing good work now. Like they're trying to make it a real caucus, and I think they are. Like I feel like I don't know anyone in the audacious caucus that isn't in another caucus. That's the only thing that's the only reason I don't normally put them with when I list the main caucuses. I don't normally say them because all of the audacious people I know are either prags or radicals or both. And then a couple of Mises. And then a couple of Waffle House.
Yeah. I'm also in the Pineapple Caucus and the Pineapple Pizza Caucus, but like, yeah, I mean, those are. I don't think we have an agenda really. I like the Wood Chipper Caucus also. All the pedos get the wood chipper. It's a great one. One I think you would actually be. I think we might have talked about this when you came on my show. Is the Carnegie Caucus. That's something that it's one of the caucuses that I actually think should exist. I don't think it should be a caucus. I disagreed with him calling it that from the beginning, but whatever. It's basically dedicated to teaching libertarian sales skills rather than economics bullshit. Yeah, that's
so like
right.
named after Dale, not like Andrew. It's like put down the Mises and the Rothbard and the Hayek and the Ayn Rand and pick up How to Win Friends and Influence People. Just Just read that once before you read another economics book. Please.
Now, yeah. Now I'm losing you. I don't know if it's you or me.
Oof.
Gotta be me now.
Well, we'll figure it out. Hello, station.
Well, I don't know.
Back.
Is your video like chopping up?
Yours was, and now you're kind of evening back out. Stacia's clear as day. Damn, that's some great actual quality on you, Stacia. That's better video quality than is normal for this show, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I mean, if we didn't do this at midnight, the sun would be out.
There's that.
What happened to Reed?
Reed was reading it out over in the middle of bumfuck nowhere with no service as normal.
I see.
She goes, oh. We were just discussing our favorite ridiculous caucuses, and I was explaining the Carnegie Caucus. But I'm really a fan of the Trashy Prom Caucus right now. I'm a new member of that one. That's the newest one that's been added to my list, so that's fun.
I was excited. I was added to my first caucus ever. The melatonin.
The melatonin caucus. Yes. Dan, are you on Clubhouse?
Yes. I only spent like an hour on there so far. I was actually kind of impressed with it, but
it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Depending on
the
group. Depending on the.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was telling you, like, I was like listening to this FBI guy. He was like I don't know if he was a hostage negotiator or something, but like, yeah, that was really cool. And I was like, man, I'm gonna go make friends with like some people at the FBI, because like I think I can make good friends with these kinds of people, and like have some interesting conversations. And then, you know, when they finally fucking come for me, at least I'll have like some friends on the inside. Maybe I can get a lighter sentence or something. Who knows?
I was in a really weird room the other day with someone. He was like the deputy secretary of the Treasury in the Trump administration. But also Ethan and Joseph Bishop henchmen were in there. And like a couple other LP friends were kind of in and out. And like, but a couple of like other like hardcore Trumpers and like unapologetic Nazbols, and it was an interesting fucking room. But we got the nationalist, like Trumper, still kind of MAGA a little bit, like tax dude, to say without prompting that he wanted to burn down the IRS building. So we all considered it a win.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
And yeah, they were talking a bunch of tax law and boring me a little bit, but it was very educational room for sure.
Until this year, I have never hung out with people who were like, until they come for me eventually. And now I feel like so many of my friends are like, yeah, you know.
That reminds me. I need to tell you a story, Dan, because I had the nightmare happen to me this past week. I was sitting upstairs just doing my work, and my mom texts me, hey, I need your license information. And I almost, because I have my license number memorized for other reasons, and I almost just like texted it to her real quick. And then I was like, you know what? No, let me see what the fuck she wants this. And I go downstairs and I was like, hey, why do you need this information? And she was like, oh, because I'm going to file your taxes. And I was like, why? She's like, because it's the law. And I was like, actually, no, it's not. Double check that shit. Right. Yeah, she thought that she was going to do it for me because she knew I wasn't going to. But I was like, do you know me? Do you know anything about me? Do you know how much of a violation of my... The thing is, I was like, I don't have to file taxes. I didn't make any money. And she was like, well, if I have these, the IRS does. And she like hands me all my W-4s or W-2s, whichever one. I don't remember. It's 1:00 in the morning. And I was like, okay, read them again, add them up, and then Google tax law for a second, since you're a licensed fucking tax preparer, and figure out the threshold for where I need to file taxes. I made $5,200 last year, taxable income. The threshold in New York is $10K. I don't have to even file my taxes. It's not even like, even if you want to be a statist, I don't have to file my taxes, let alone what I want to, even if I did.
So if that number ever goes over the threshold, just remember on those W-2s where it says how much they paid you, it's in a little box called wages. And if you look up the definition of the word wages in the Internal Revenue Code, it's money that's given to employees. And if you look up the definition of employees, it's people who work for the government. So basically, it says you got wages, so you can file a form called a W-2C that says, no, that money wasn't wages. I got zero in wages, and send it back to them, and file your return that says zero. And
What?
you're all good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dan Taxation is Theft Behrman dropping some
I simplified
bombs.
it, but yeah. That's
Do you
basically
have
it.
any advice for people? Do you have any resources for people to go figure out how to become professional tax evaders like yourself?
Yes. I highly recommend Dave Champion's book. I think that's the latest and most thorough. Joe Bannister has a really awesome book that he just re-released with updates. He wrote it back in the 90s. He's a former IRS agent, special investigation agent, and like he heard on NPR one day that people were saying there's no law that says you have to pay income tax, and he's like, bullshit. So he tried to Google it. I mean, he tried to go through, like, this is before Google. This was like before the internet. He tried like going through the tax code. He read everything. He spent years investigating, and he was like, it can't be done. He's like, it's not there. So he confronted his boss, and his boss said, you can either keep your mouth shut or you can resign. And he resigned and sued the IRS a million times. They tried to sue him, won, and the guy's a fucking badass. He's I think it's Agent for Truth, and he's got a book on there that's like amazing. So Dave Champion's book, Income Tax Shattering the Myths, he like walks through the whole code, tells you like, so you really understand it. So there's his book, Joe Bannister's. There's if you can, okay, now this one, I wanna make this disclaimer first, right? The first time they shot a rocket into space with people on it, they all died, right? I don't know if that was the first time or the second time or whatever, but that shit happened, right? Now people go into space all the time, and the number of people who die, far fewer, right? Did the laws of physics change? Nope, not at all. We just understand them better, right? So the next book I want to recommend is called Federal Mafia. It's written by a guy named Irwin Schiff, Peter Schiff's dad. He went to prison for writing this book. He basically did what Dave Champion did, except he did it, I don't know, 30, 40 years earlier. And the laws are all the same, but he didn't understand the laws as well. So, or actually, that's not even true, because when they tried to sue him and ban his book, yes, they tried to ban his book. Free Speech America tried to ban a book about the income tax. And when they lost the case banning it, they set him up and sent him to prison, because they were like, well, we'll just shut him up that way. But when they lost the case trying to ban it, the judge said that because he was telling people not to file their taxes, he wasn't. So apparently the only reason you can ban something is if it incites violence or tells people to do something illegal, right? So if the book had been telling people to break the law. But the judge said, but it's telling them not to do something. And so by not doing something, they're breaking the law. He's not telling them to do something that would be breaking the law. That's the reason that the judge said he didn't ban the book. But in reality, this book that's like 1,000 pages long, they never once tried to say one sentence in that fucking book was a lie. Because it was all fucking true. But anyway, so he went to prison over that shit. Fucking awesome guy. I wrote to him. I got a letter like written by him, but he died in there a few years ago. Fucking terrible, man. For trying to share the truth. So that's Irwin Schiff. That book is definitely worth reading just because it's like, I mean, that's like a piece of history right there. You can get your hands on it. I see him on eBay for like a couple $100. Yeah. Wow. But anyways, those are some great books. And I was just reading a book today, not today, like last week or something, but like it was my friend sent it to me. He found it. It was like an old book, like from the 70s or 80s, and it was like the IRS, like, you know, the most corrupt agency or so. It's something like that. And I started reading through it, and basically, like, they're just going to go through a bunch of stories of people who were like terrorized by the IRS. And it's like, I remember this. I remember seeing a documentary in the 90s, and the IRS, like, they're like fucking, they're adorable little puppies right now compared to what they used to be. Holy shit. They used to go with SWAT teams and like, oh, you owe us $27 and fucking kick down the front door of like a you know, some like family owned B&B and shoot their dog and like zip tie all their kids and like make them sit next to the dead dog for like hours and like all this other shit. And like there's like all these stories like that in there. Like the like one of them is like these people, like the IRS said, oh, you owe us $3,000, but there's no calculation as to why. You just owe us $3,000. And they said, well, we're not going to pay until you give us a calculation. So they sent another letter saying, well, now it's $5,000. And then they were like, no, we want to talk to somebody. Well, now it's $7,000. So then they were like, okay, this whole thing with the letters and the phone calls isn't working. So they went down to the IRS building. And while they were in the fucking IRS building, they came downstairs and the fucking tow truck was pulling their car. Like it was lifting their car up, getting ready to take their car. And they had no order. They had no court order. They had no warrants. They had no cases even filed. No reason they should be taking property, right? These guys were like, they were begging with the tow truck guy. And when the tow truck guy realized what happened and they were like, there's no paperwork. We were never sued. Like, we can't even figure out why. The tow truck guy was like, yeah, fuck this. He put the car down and he took off. Then all of the fucking IRS guys took all their cars and they started boxing in these people's car so that they couldn't take their fucking car. Next thing you know, these people, they get in their car and they lock themselves in because they don't know what the fuck to do. And then the fucking IRS gets on them like old school style fucking gangs of New York cops beating the windows with their batons and like all kinds of shit, just fucking dragging them out of the car. And like all this shit's going on, and like all these people from like across the street start building up crowds. Like, hey, what the fuck you guys did? They're yelling at them, right? Nobody's going to intervene because, for all they know, this is like, you know, some dangerous gangs inside of that car, and you know, the FBI is just doing the IRS is just doing their job. But like that's the kind of shit they used to do a lot. Like those are just a couple stories, but that's the kind of shit they used to do a lot of, and that's where like people really became afraid of the IRS. Now today, it's like they don't even have to do that shit because people are so afraid. Mm-hmm. Like they're like, oh, well, it's gonna happen, and it's like, that stuff hasn't really been happening for a long time. But they got us all paying our taxes, so they don't really give a fuck.
All right. Well, speaking of the IRS fucking with things, tell me about, was it Fluffy Bunny? Is that the
Fluffy Kitten?
Fluffy Kitten.
What?
Fluffy Kitten. Okay,
Fluffy
so
Kitten.
We came up with this like harebrained idea where like, okay,
You're gonna love this, Stacia.
so I'm like, I like having an LLC, but I don't like having an LLC because it's government, right? But I'm like, I like having some sort of limited liability. And like this always comes up in conversations like, oh, well, corporations, this, and you know, they get special protections and rights and shit. And like, I'm thinking like, okay, what's the libertarian answer to that, right? How do you have these organizations without government? How do you get limited liability protection? And I'm like, that could all be contractual. In fact, it's basically already contractual, right? When you do business with a company and like you know, like you sign up for your Blockbuster card, right? Am I dating myself again? And you get the contract and it says Blockbuster Inc. Like the fact that you're signing a contract and it says Blockbuster Inc. and like there's like case law for this too. If they don't put the Inc., then basically you're not treating them as a corporation. But like especially in like more ambiguous circumstances. In Blockbuster, it's like, okay, it's Blockbuster. Obviously the guy giving you the contract doesn't own the place, right? But that's kind of the thing, right? You're signing the contract with the corporation. Now, of course, the corporation doesn't decide how much limited liability they have, and that's not printed as part of the contract. Instead, like when you sign that contract, you're also like amending that contract with all the state legislation that surrounds, like, you know, the limited liability of the corporations, right? So I'm like, why don't we just make it simple? Why don't we make it if I start an organization, I can have a corporate charter, the same as you do like with a regular corporation, which basically says these are the bylaws, this is how it operates, these are the directors, this is how they meet, vote, all that kind of stuff, who gets the shares, all that stuff. You can do all that completely without government. And then whenever you make a contract with somebody, you know, you write your business, LLO, limited liability organization, and in the terms of like terms and conditions, like if it's like by using our website, you agree to the terms and conditions, you check the box. Terms and conditions say this is a limited liability organization. If you ever want to sue us, you can't sue any of the employees, you can't sue any of the owners, the directors, or anything else. Like you're going to treat this as if it's a corporation. This is how much it's worth. You can never sue beyond this amount, you know, stuff like that. And of course, you know, like, oh, well, if it's an airline and they say they're only worth like $5, because, you know, someone's going to want to show, oh, if we say we're only worth $5, they can't sue us for more than that. It's like no one's going to fly on your planes unless you put something there, right? It's kind of like the insurance policy or the bond system that anarchists are always talking about. And so you do this, and now you have limited liability without the government. So I'm creating all these like political organizations, and they're formed as LLOs. And so like I was talking to Thomas Queter, and I'm like, what do you think about this idea? And he's like, dude, you're gonna go to prison. And I'm like, that's cool, man. But what do you think about the idea? And
it's funny because that's
that's exactly how that conversation went. And he's like, I mean, he's like, I think it's a good idea, but like, he was like, this is a really bad idea because I'm high. But what if like you named it something that sounded really non-threatening, so that if you ever had to defend this in front of a jury, like it would be so ridiculous that they would side against it. And so he's like, what if we call it Fluffy Kitten? I'm like, okay. Done deal.
That's so funny.
Who's gonna send a fluffy kitten to prison? That's so fucked up.
And so that's your limited liability organization, is like the whole thing is called Fluffy Kitten.
Yeah, Fluffy Kitten.
Wow.
Fluffy Kitten is the limited liability organization. So like that's just kind of where it kind of works like I mean,
it's like an umbrella corp.
Well, no, it's like a Creative Commons, right? You go to the Creative Commons website and they have like, these are the terms and conditions to use the pictures, right? These are your copyrights. It's basically the same thing. So we have a website that has like a template terms and conditions. If somebody wants to copy it and like say like, oh, like I like this, but I want to change this, and like they want to explicitly put it on their website, that's fine. They can do that. Or if like people want to make suggestions and then we add to it and we have version 2, version 3, and then like you update your website and say all of our new contracts are now version 2. You're agreeing to version 2 or version 3. Like it can change like that. Like that's like what I'm hoping to see is like something really, really big, and like that actually changes the way people think about what an organization is or what a corporation is. Legal entity kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Use it for Second Look.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that.
Am I gonna get arrested though?
Maybe.
I don't want to get arrested for that.
I mean, you won't. I mean, if I got arrested, it would be for telling people to do it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But like, no, because I mean, there's really nothing illegal about it. Like the thing is, like, as far as the government's concerned, you're still a sole proprietor. So like, if the government wants to take your property, there's no limited liability. They're gonna be like, what the fuck is that? That's nonsense. We don't have any contract with you. You're just a citizen, and we can take anything that you have. That's the government's attitude. So there's that. But I mean, there's stuff you can do with trusts too, to like hide money or put shit overseas, and I don't know. You can get creative if if that's what you're worried about.
Yeah, there's a network for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have a question though. How do you handle banking?
So banking would just be a non-corporate account with multiple signers, like a joint account, basically, or a single. Like if I wanted to get one for my organizations, I would just use my personal account. If I wanted to put a co-signer on there who's a partner in the business, same thing. There's just no corporate name. If you wanted to, you could put a DBA on there, except usually for a DBA, they ask for a government certified DBA, which is bullshit, but banks they're always sucking the government knob. So something you got to deal
Bitcoin.
with. Bitcoin, yes, absolutely. I mean, like every site I put up, I'm always putting Bitcoin on there. Just because, like, let's create that economy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I can't wait till that shit takes over.
Yes,
that's really good.
That's the kind of agorist, like, anti-politics shit I'm all about.
Yeah. I mean, like that's the thing, right? I mean, like that's the other thing, right?
Gonna love me for saying that.
Ron Paul was like, "End the Fed," and like libertarians were like, "End the Fed," and it's like we're not one step fucking closer to ending the Fed. But then some guy came along and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna make this fucking cryptocurrency." That's done more to end the Fed than like all like in the last year alone than all of the libertarians have for the past 50 years.
Well, it could be argued. I'll give Ron Paul some props. The inventor of Bitcoin was a fan of Ron Paul. So,
and I don't want to discredit him for all the work that he did do.
I know. I just like pointing out, because as Stacia's pointed out to me, we don't say this enough. We did that shit. Like, yeah, it's all anonymous and whatever, and it's not like we don't have control. Like, it's not our thing right now, but like we did that shit. Nerds and libertarians made Bitcoin a thing. They made Dogecoin a thing. They made Ethereum a thing, and they made blockchain a thing. That's us. We did that. Like the children of the Ron Paul revolution made Bitcoin. That's something that I will like. That's a hill I will fucking die on, because we don't talk about that enough. We like let Elon Musk be the Bitcoin daddy, and it's like no, Satoshi, fuck you. Like I knew about Bitcoin in 2013.
I don't think Satoshi had a. I don't think he paid his membership dues for the Libertarian Party though, so he wasn't
probably
really a real libertarian.
But the people that built the first online marketplace for that Bitcoin was traded on were dues-paying members of the LP.
There you go.
Fact.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, that's the thing, man. Like, and that's interesting too, because like a lot of people, like, they say they don't care about shit, but like we all have a psychological defense mechanism for like if we don't have an option to not get hurt, like we'll convince ourselves that it doesn't hurt. And so like when you talk to people, like you're like, I'm good, I'll just walk it off, right?
Yeah.
So like when like you talk about like, oh, the NSA, it's been listening to all our phone calls, people are like, oh, well, I don't care about that, I don't have anything to hide, right? Like some people get pissed off, but most people are just like, oh, well, whatever, what are you going to do about it? But now it's like, well, did you know, like, imagine if it was like, did you know you could just dial 1 before you dial a phone number and it'll block the NSA out? How many people do you think would start doing that? Like the people who said they don't care the NSA is listening, and then they'll try and play it off like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. They can listen all they want. All you have to do is press 1 if you really don't want them to listen, right? And now they're all about privacy again. So it's like, it's funny, like, but that's like the Bitcoin thing, right? Because people were like, oh, who cares? Like, yeah, I know I'm using my credit card and I know they can track all these transactions. Those same people are now using Bitcoin and like, they're enjoying the privacy just because they can. Like, even if it's just like, ooh, just because the government doesn't want me to do it, I'm doing it. Yeah, I'm cool. And like, I'm not going to go to prison for it. But it's like, they enjoy that shit.
Or they understand the economics behind it and why like the dollar is about to fucking crash.
You know, I talked to a lot of people about Bitcoin. It's actually, I was listening to, I went through like 5 different Bitcoin chats on, what was that thing you're talking about? Clubhouse. And like most of those people, they didn't understand shit about economics. They were basically talking about it like it's a stock. So I think like, but then again, those people
annoy the
weren't
shit out of me.
Well, at the same time, they probably aren't the people who are like spending Bitcoin and enjoying the privacy either. So like, I don't know, maybe it's a different thing, but
yeah, no. Well, so I'll say 2 things because I said that really quickly and that's me just being obnoxious because if the like lower upper class / upper middle class like late Gen X stock trader people like my dad didn't buy a couple $100 worth of Bitcoin and Ethereum back in like February, March, April, like regularly, you know, is in the stock trading thing, it would have been significantly more unstable. And those of us that were doing it either like just were in it from the get-go and in it for the fun of it, like Stacia, like actually did a lot more crypto than I did. And like I've actually, I almost exclusively use it for transactions. Like I don't, like I just go through that. Like that's how I buy a lot of things online, and like it wouldn't have worked as well for us doing the things that we were doing if those boomers and Gen Xers didn't do the stock version of it. However, that shit pisses me off because it's like that's not the point. Like when I started getting emails from Robinhood and like and Cash App, it's like how to report your crypto earnings to the IRS, and I was like, what kind of bullshit is that? That's the whole like how stupid. What do you mean report my crypto? Or what?
That's like that meme where that dude's with his girl and she's like. What did she say? She's like, fuck me like you're an idiot or something. Oh,
I'm going to report my crypto earnings to the IRS.
Yeah.
Like,
man.
what? Yeah. How fucking dumb do you have to be to like click, like open that email? It's like, oh yeah, I want to learn how to not evade taxes.
Right.
Fuck all that. And
but at the same time,
Robinhood for actually reporting all that shit to the IRS from the get-go.
At the same time, like, for all those people that are doing it, it's like one of the reasons like the dollar gets its value is because people are doing that shit with the dollar. And so it's like if they're switching over, or like even the stock market, I mean, you got to have like 2 things to trade, right? But like even foreign markets that trade for dollars, because like dollars are the most valuable. Like now, if they're doing that with Bitcoin, it's like all of those people doing that are helping to drive the price up and like value the whole market. So I'm not mad at them. It was funny. Every single room, when I went into all those different rooms, there was one person in every single room who was trying to say, this isn't investing, this is gambling. And like, but it's interesting because like I see it as gambling, like when you're trading. But I say the same about the stock market because like the reality is like, and I talk about this all the time, right? Like it's stupid to have a conversation where 2 different people believe the word means something different. So like really what these people are, they weren't arguing over whether or not it was investing. They were arguing over what their definition of the word investing is really what was going on. But with investing, like, so like, I think the main concept that I like to point out is if you go to like a GoFundMe or you go to like a Kickstarter, and you give them money, you are investing in the business because the business actually receives that money and they're going to use it to buy equipment, manufacture stuff, whatever. If you go to the stock market, if you go to Robinhood or whatever, and you buy a share of Amazon, you're not investing in Amazon. You're buying a share of Amazon that some other trader had, and you're getting it from him. That money is not going to Amazon. Jeff Bezos doesn't get to spend it. Like, that's 99% of transactions. So you're investing in your portfolio, maybe. Okay, fine. But like, I think that's a really important distinction. And especially with crypto, that's all it is, right? Because someone told me I'm wrong about that. They said with some of these things, when you buy the coin, it actually goes to the founding organization and they use it to like mine more or something. I don't know.
There are a couple of more in that dichotomy, more Kickstarter-y cryptos that does exist now, which is kind of cool.
But like for Bitcoin, it's like no, when you buy it, you're just giving your money to somebody else who already has it, who mined it or who bought it at a different price, and that's all. And if you're trading, it's just a gamble. Is the market going to go up? Is it going to go down? That you're gambling.
Can I?
Not that there's anything wrong
go
with
for it.
So, lately I've been thinking about like the state of the world, and do you guys think there's like a small group of wealthy people who are running everything?
Well,
yeah. Okay. Well, it's been interesting because that's another thing
I'm based in Reed-Pilled, so of course.
Well, that's another thing that I've been bringing up with Democrats, and a lot of them seem like, yeah. So I think that ties in with.
But they're on our side.
Oh, maybe I don't know. Yeah, I wonder if that's what they think. But
I mean,
interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
I mean, when you look at the Clintons, and you know.
Yeah, but could it also be that thing that you were saying where if you're powerless, you know?
Yeah.
You're just like, it's fine. They're on our side, like, you know.
Yeah, or you pretend it doesn't exist, right? Pretend it's not there. Pretend there's no monster under the bed.
Yeah. So you guys talk a lot of, like, libertarians in general. It seems like the problem is all the government, but I don't know. The way I see it, it's like this small group of like maybe wealthy psychopaths, like, who don't actually care about anyone but themselves, and they're definitely not all in the government.
Right, but like, what mechanism do they use to carry out their crazy plans? The government. So like,
not just the government. They also use private corporations and they use the banking system.
Yeah. But that stuff is like, so, okay. So for example, the banking system, why does the banking system exist? Because of the government. The government has outlawed, I tried to start a bank once. That was fucking impossible. Like, they have outlawed a free market in banks because I wanted to create a bank I basically wanted to create PayPal, except your money was in gold while it was sitting in your account. This was like before Bitcoin. And like, yeah, that's illegal. Right. There was another guy who actually, he was printing gold and silver coins. He went to prison for that. Like, they control the banking system and the currency and the money and everything else.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right. But the reason that exists the way it is because of the government. I mean, you look at the big pharmaceutical companies. Why are they ripping us off so much? Because the government put rules in place that benefit them. Who wrote those rules? The big corporations that are making all the money. They just paid, billions of dollars to the senators. And next thing you know, they got a law. And that's how all of it works. That's the whole fucking system. But
I don't see how getting rid of one system would fix like the rest of the system and the rest and like the people who are determined to exploit.
So I'll take that one real quick, because a lot of libertarian, if they're big L libertarian especially, they have chosen politics to be their way to fight back against the cabal or the cathedral or whatever the fuck you want to call it, for the most part. You know, a lot of people still call themselves libertarians when they haven't chosen that path, but that's beside the point. I don't think anyone believes that we're going to get rid of the government without getting rid of the cathedral. Or I don't like that term, but I'm using it now unironically.
The statist mentality.
The omnipotent cult of the state.
There you go.
That controls everything is multifaceted. It has to be attacked from a lot of angles, and most libertarians understand that. But their biggest and most powerful weapon is the government, and it's something that people can rally around because governments have been tyrannical in almost every case throughout throughout time, and it's an easier thing to attack specifically. Meanwhile, we're also attacking private corporations like the Fed by doing things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're also trying to attack things like Amazon with different companies. We're doing things like Fluffy Kitten and doing other things. I actually just had on my show Livy McKay, who was going on a rant about how the LP should just be a fostering zone for small corporations that like solve problems, and we should fuck off with electoral politics because it's useless. And I'm like, well, that can be a different thing. Do that. That's great.
I've actually been saying all they should be involved in is ballot access, and that's it. Call it a day. Forget the rest.
Yeah, basically. I'm with you on that one for the most part. That's why we have the Pride Caucus, is to do the rest of the shit.
Do everything else outside.
Yeah, so I do understand the critique, and it is something that I hear a lot of. It's like, yeah, if we blew up the state tomorrow, yes, Walmart and Amazon and McDonald's would take over, and all of the funny memes would be true. Yeah. They're never gonna let that happen tomorrow, right? We need to break down the entire thing. But one of the first things to do that with is by decentralizing government, is one of the easier, more tangible ways to attack that. While we're also doing other things.
Right. I think most people don't want to break down the entire thing, and so that's where you lose them. Like they want to fight the cabal, but they also want someone they can call if their kid gets kidnapped.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important to go off those, off the whole freedom, liberty, get rid of government thing, and onto, those single issues. Because here's the thing too, like as much as anarchists talk about, we just want to burn the whole thing down. It's like, you're anarchists. You want no arcos, right? Anarchy comes from the word anarchos, without rulers. You want to get rid of the rulers. You don't want to get rid of government, because even anarchists want government. And before like anarchists come around and say, "Oh, you're full of shit. We don't want any government." What is self-governance?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a form of government, right? So you do want a form of government. You call it self-governance, but it's a form of government that doesn't have rulers. And so that's the thing. But David, to your point, you said if we got rid of the whole thing today, then maybe some corporations would take over. I don't think that's true, but I can't say it's not. But I think also the other important point to point out is that you still have in this country alone, in your country alone, 340 million out of 300. Let's say there's 10 million libertarians, 340 million Americans who are going to be like, why did we get rid of that government? Let's bring it back. And you're going to have another one. So maybe they don't beat the corporations to it. I don't know. But it's like, that's the thing. And this goes back to like the whole thing about the minimum wage. We have to change people's mindset and the way that they think. Because if you pull the rug out from under them, they're not going to survive. And what's going to imagine you got a libertarian president in office, and he's like, we're shutting everything down. And then because there's no transition, nobody knows how to function. So like the food chain breaks down because like people aren't able to figure out some shit yet.
Mhm.
And then like in the couple days where like people panic and the grocery stores go empty, next thing you know, everyone's like kicking in their neighbor's door and killing everybody for some food to survive for like 2 days. And like it's total chaos and panic. And then they're like, well, we tried that libertarian thing and you saw what happened.
Mhm.
Like that's not a great scenario either. So
Mhm.
so like yeah, even like so we need a transition and we need a mindset shift. Like
Mhm.
without those, it's like you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Fail to plan to fail.
Yeah. And I'll add, like, you put out a fantastic article a few weeks ago about the healthcare system and what's wrong with it. And there's a lot of things in there that aren't the state. You're 100% right. But I'll ask, what got you looking into that? Stacia.
What got me looking into it?
Yeah, like what got you on the trail of
I
looking
thought you were
into
talking
why
about my
the
article.
I know. I just
Did you put
I
out
just
an
remembered
article?
that you also wrote a really good article like a couple of days before that one. I was like, oh fuck. Because the reason I'm asking her is because I think you'll already get this point.
I don't remember.
Well, I don't mean anything specific. I just mean like the kind of conversations and mindset changes that got you into that. I mean, like, I'm not trying to take credit for your article, but I'm saying like talking to libertarians about why the healthcare system is fucked up, and other people talking about politics, and then into that kind of conversation. It's a good way to introduce people to the cabal. Is like a lot of people can see like, okay, the government's doing some fuck shit, and then the government is empowering all these other creepy people in the background to do some fuck shit.
Yeah. So yeah, that's actually a big part of my goal with Second Look. And I literally I'm trying to be strategic about it in that there's some articles I want to put out that I'm holding back on. And
I want it so bad.
I mean, like, I brainstormed what are some articles I could put out that's like, you have to work backwards, to like, what's something that wouldn't be too scary, wouldn't be too crazy, but would still shift the worldview, shift the conversation. So yeah, that's a number of the articles that we're working on are stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, actually, I remember the healthcare article. It was, I don't remember exactly where it came from, but it was just realizing that the conversation, it's that thing I was talking about before, where neither side is actually looking at the right problem, and they're literally just pointed at each other. It's like about attacking the other side almost. I mean, it's almost like either one, if they were implemented, they wouldn't actually solve the problem, because no one is looking at what the actual problem is underneath. And so, yeah. Anyway, yeah. But I don't know. I don't know. It because I always end up thinking that it's like some trauma. That because things are so bad right now, people are like, the government is terrible and we have to get rid of it. But in other places, like it I feel like it functions better, maybe. Like, I didn't grow up feeling afraid of police. The American police are scary. But I don't know.
Where'd you grow up?
In Japan.
Japan has a better constitution.
Well, they do like arrest people for smoking weed and stuff. Like, I mean, they're not perfect, but
they have a better Second Amendment, and they have an interesting.
Wait, does their Second Amendment not say muskets in there or something?
Well, so the thing is, it's a weird like cultural thing from how it's been explained to me, that like legally they actually have better gun rights than we do, but they just don't exercise them because culturally they're not as gun nuts as we
Right.
are. Like they could own guns, but they just choose not to more
They
often.
could? I really
Uh,
thought it was illegal.
I heard.
I think the cities, they're like specific of like the major cities have made them hella illegal, but like if you go like out into the country in Japan, you like it's pretty open. On top of that, they also they like the countryside in Japan did really good with COVID on like a freedom standpoint of just like, yeah, all right.
Well, it was against their constitution. That's what all the
It's against ours too. We just did it anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like, so like they just have us trained. I mean, like the same thing with the income tax, right? Like you don't have to pay it, but like if you think you have to pay it, you're gonna. And so like the executive order, I kept trying to like tell people this, like, okay. This was my analogy, right? Because the governor issues an executive order saying like everybody has to wear a mask, right? And like imagine like you're sitting in a restaurant, you're eating dinner, and the manager comes out from the back and says, "Okay, everybody come in the back, start doing dishes." You're sitting there eating your dinner. Are you going to get up and go start doing dishes? No. But I bet you every single employee goes in the back and starts doing dishes. Why? Because he just gave them an executive order. And since they work for him, they have to follow that order. That's what an executive order is. An executive order is not a law that we as citizens, that's a whole other discussion, the word citizens, that we have to follow, right? That's not an order for us. But when they write everybody, which only means state employees or government employees, and we see the word everybody and believe that means us, and then the uneducated news sees the word everybody and they repeat the word everybody, and everybody now just thinks everybody, and you're all now following this fucking thing. It's ridiculous. I was flying through an airport in Houston on a layover, and it said, and then even the announcement on the PA said, the county has ordered that all residents of Harris County must wear masks while indoors. And I was like, well, I'm not a resident of Harris County. I'm just fucking passing through the airport. So, but the stupid thing is, if I were to walk around that airport at that time, because this was like in June or something, if I were to walk around that airport without my mask on, I guarantee you people would be coming up to me left and right. Oh, put your mask on. We're going to die. And it's like, but that's not the law. Right. So, but that's like the trick. And I've seen people like, you see people like, usually it's, man, I used to see my grandfather argue all the time. That's illegal. And, you know, like you get into a fight with somebody else and they're arguing over that's illegal. And it's like, no, you just don't like what that person did. So you're saying it's illegal because you think it should be illegal. But in reality, there's no law that applies to that at all. But it's like, yeah, it's a fucking.
I will say the greatest white pill that I've enjoyed over the last few weeks was a little over 400 people in one room without a single goddamn mask in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania last weekend at the Meat Cock Bash. It was great. I was like, and the thing is, like, there were signs all over. And well, so the thing is, I actually am sick, but not that kind of sick. I did get sick, but that's because I spent a lot of time outside standing up with 5 hours of sleep total combined with throughout 3 nights. And so, yes, I did come home with a cold, but that's actually one of my favorite things about like the COVID symptoms is that it's specific. Like since the beginning, they've specified that it has nothing like the upper, like the sinus shit. It doesn't do that shit. If you have like a runny nose, it's not COVID. They've said that since the beginning.
Yeah, but you could have both. You
could have both, but I'll probably get tested again. I have been getting tested fairly regularly just in case. I don't 100% believe everything, but like the tests, I'm like, if I get a negative test, I can at least show that to people and be like, hey, shut the fuck up, I don't have it. At least they believe the tests. So that's the important part.
Right.
Oh, well, guys, it is coming up on 2 hours. Dan, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. There's a little thing scrolling around the bottom, but give one more little endorsement of Nug of Knowledge and tell people how to.
Nug of Knowledge. So if it weren't for the Nug of Knowledge and the fine people who run it, also me, this wouldn't have been my first podcast I did while smoking THC Delta 8, which is get it while it's still legal, because they're trying to ban that shit now too.
I know.
But yeah, go over to Nug of Knowledge, and David's one of our affiliates. So we have a really awesome affiliate program because we want to spread the wealth too. We want everybody in the libertarian community to make some money. Become a nug dealer. Go sling some herb to your friends.
So it's your company?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a few of us.
That's so cool. Okay.
But yeah, it's like so we joke around and we say it's like Mary K, but it's Mary J. So everybody, but it's really awesome. And like and then we have like the Nugs and Hugs program, so we give away free weed to people who need it, who can't afford it. They need it for medicine, veterans, that sort of thing. And we call all of our stuff, this is new because apparently we're trying to get our ads running, and like even the cannabis network ads, like that run cannabis ads through like online networks, they won't run ads that say cannabis in it or Delta 8 or even like at first they said legal in all 50 states. I can't say that. Then I said, okay, ships to all 50 states. And they're like, no, you can't say that. So they're like very, very, and I'm sure they're just being paranoid about, what's the government going to do to them. But yeah, it's fucking nuts. So like, anyway, so we're going through that, like we're trying to get our ads going, but like, so they don't like the word cannabis. And I'm sitting here like, first of all, smoking weed is a human right. Second of all, the genus of the plant is cannabis. It's a Latin word. I mean, it's called cannabis. I don't know what it means, but that is every single plant, whether it's hemp and it has no THC in it, or whether it's like crystal white, snow white, crazy Bubba Kush, purple hemp, whatever. Any of that stuff, it's all cannabis. That's the name of the genus, man.
Cannabis sativa. It's all the same shit.
It's the name of the fucking plant. So you're telling me I have to lie to my customers? Because they believe that cannabis means it has THC and hemp means it doesn't. That's what they believe. It's fucking bullshit. They're like redefining the language.
But it does have THC. Well, some of it does.
So this one is THC Delta 8, which as of now is legal in most places, but like it's the same as THC, but it's like one chemical different. So like, I'm smoking it right now. It feels kind of nice, just like THC, a little bit milder maybe. I mean, well, you probably hit harder, but yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not CBD, right? Like CBD is like nothing. So, yeah. So, but now they're trying to ban it because they're like, oh, we don't want people getting high. Fuck that. So that's my other organization, endthedrugwarnow.org, where we say smoking weed is a human right because, everyone's trying to legalize it because you can make tax money or because it's got so many health benefits. Yeah, that's great on the health benefits. It's a human right, so it shouldn't be taxed ever. And like, even if there were no health benefits and all it did was get me high, I have a human right to pursue my happiness in that way.
True that. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching. Dan, Stacia, love you guys.
Have a good night.
See you guys.
Good morning.
See you next week.